Okay, I've had a request from a user or a subscriber on my channel to record a tutorial on how to do this zoom in effect. Now, the zooms can be done from any distance, be 1 mile, be 6 feet, but I've uploaded some images to my Dropbox, which I'll supply a link to underneath the video that I put up on YouTube on how to do this, so you can follow along with the exact same images I am using. The images I'll be using, you can see on the screen here in the Dropbox, are these ones, the beetle here, numbered 1 to 8 down the bottom. So they're the ones we're going to be using on this tutorial. I've also supplied another set of images up the top of a little mushroom up in the mountains that you can try to recreate a zoom in effect on that one. So what I'll do is I'll put up a video now that shows what we'll be making today. And hope you enjoy and hope you learn something from this. Thank you. Okay, I'm guessing you've got the After Effects open at this point, and hopefully you've got the images downloaded into a folder. Now, click New Project up the top left here, the blue box, and we're going to create a new composition from footage. Click that, navigate to your folder if it hasn't already gone straight there. Click on a image, hold Shift down, and select all images and click Import. Now what's going to open up is your color correction screen. So we're not going to color correct at this point, we're just going to OK each image. Just keep clicking the OK down in the corner here till all 8 images are open. All the images will be raw images except for the stacked image that's a JPEG. Now once all 8 images are open, set your composition length to 1 minute. Even if you don't want it to be 1 minute, it's got to be 1 minute, because if you add a speed ramp, it's going to shorten that time. Once you've set the 1 minute up here in the box, click OK. Now if your images haven't ended up down here in your timeline, select all of them up here and drag them down and drop them down here. Once they're down here, click anywhere underneath to unhighlight them all. And hopefully they're in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've ordered them like that so you know which order they're going to go in. So the closest image will always be at the top, that will be your macro image. The last image in the pile will be the one furthest away from your macro shot. Now we can unselect all these images. You can either click each eyeball and do them one at a time, or you can click on an eyeball holding the left mouse button down and dragging down until you get to. Don't unselect the last image. You leave that one turned on. You can adjust your screen here up and down if you need to see a bigger picture. The other thing I suggest, if you've got a bit of a slow computer, this button here where it says full or quarter, I'd probably put it down to quarter. My computer's a bit slow, so it's only got a process quarter of the image quality, not the full image quality. So I'd select that to quarter if you're having problems. You might avoid some crashes while you're at it. Okay, now you've got the bottom image selected. We're going to select image number 7 by clicking on it, highlight the image 7. I want you to click the eyeball on it and then I want you, the little arrow key here, I want you to open that so you can see the transform button, and then you're going to open that to see the properties of transform. Now we're going to go to the scale, which is here. We're going to adjust the scale down till we match the image on top of the image underneath. So left click and drag it down. You'll see it moving down. The part I would try and match up, you can see here there's a tree, and on the other image there's a tree. Bring it up and try and match it with that. If you can't match it with that, just get the road matched as close as you can. So I'll bring it up. Just look at my numbers on the screen because yours will be exactly the same. So about there is pretty close. If you turn down your opacity down here, you can actually see through your top image into your back image, and you can sort of get the idea if you're lined up. You're never ever going to be lined up with these images. Just get them as close as possible because it saves a lot of problems later. But I'd look at your road here, make sure the edge of the road's lined up. Make sure you put your opacity back to 100% when you're finished playing with that. Once you've done that, just if you can't see what's below this, just slide your screen up a little bit. Just so you can see layer 8, because what you've got to do now is you've got to select a little pick whip just down here on the bottom where it says pick whip. Left click, drag that to layer 7. Once you've dragged it down, let it go. I want you to return your scale to the top image, that's layer 7, back to 100%. You can either drag it up to 100% or just type in 100%. And that will return that image back to 100%. You can minimize layer 7 now and move to layer 6. Same thing again, highlight the layer, turn on the eyeball, click the bracket key, open transform properties, and then scale down until you match it up with the image behind it. Now you'll notice this image is a whole lot brighter than the last two images. That's because I've deliberately made them brighter so you can see how you do a color adjustment if your colors aren't matching. When you take these images, it's a good idea to keep your camera in manual and your white balance set to manual. For a daytime picture, this was early morning, but a daytime picture you want to set it for at least 5000K to 5100K. If it's a darker picture, you might go down to 4500 if it's getting late in the day. You can adjust those properties later on, but keep every image at the same white balance level. So do your shooting in manual, everything's set to manual. Your shutter speed doesn't matter, but if the trees are moving in the background, I highly recommend you use a faster shutter speed. By using a faster shutter speed, you're going to obviously lose light, so you may have to bump up the ISO. But the only thing you really can't change on that camera is your white balance. Do not put it in auto and take auto pictures because your white balance will change every shot. So whatever other settings you use, it doesn't matter as long as the white balance is in manual. So now on this level we'll scale this down to fit the image that's underneath it. Again, now this time we'll scale it right down. You can see here we've got a tree here, we've got a tree there. We've got to try and line up with the trees. The road will line up if you're lined up with the trees. Just if you can't see, because the image is fairly dark, the one behind is fairly dark, you can put your mouse over here. If you've got a rollie on top of your mouse, you can just roll it up and have a look a bit closer. That's pretty close. It doesn't have to be spot on. Just make sure you roll back as well. If you roll right back, you see your full frame here. If you roll one, your full frame's what you see there. If you roll further forward, you're going to be over your full frame, and that will bugger you up later on. So always keep it to the full frame if you can. If you need to zoom in, just roll your mouse, zoom in, and take it back to the full frame. Okay, once we've got that one lined up, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to go to image 7. We're going to select the pick whip, we're going to drag it up to 6 and let it go. Then we're going to click the scale again, type in 100%. If you ever forget to rescale an image up, nothing is going to work when you finish this. You'll have to start all over again. It's pretty hard to go back once you've done the whole lot. Once this one's scaled up, you can minimize layers, photo 6 and go to layer, photo 5. Just click the layer again, turn on the eyeball, click the bracket key and open the transform properties, and then scale down again to try and match. You're never going to get these to match perfectly. So what I'm looking at these trees here, but our target tree is there. Where you see your little dot in the middle of the screen, that's your target. That's where your macro shot was taken. If we turn down the opacity here, we can see that we've got to be scaled up a little bit, not much. That's about the only way you'll really get these lined up properly. It's a bit of a fiddle to do this. I just do your best to line the images up. This tree here, when I zoom in and out, you'll see it. That there is the side of this tree. So try and get it up pretty close. It doesn't matter, we're going to be masking half this out anyway. We'll line that one up there. Now, me moving the mouse, I can't get it down to the right size, so I'm just going to click the scale and type in from 58 to 57 and see if that will work. A little bit closer. That's pretty close there. We will never ever be able to move your mouse backwards, not unless you've got a very good mouse, but you won't be able to move backwards and forwards to get it spot on. Don't worry about this, that will be masked out later on. And so will all this. I can see the roads nowhere near matched up. That will be all masked at a later date. Now, same thing again. Once you've got it to that position, grab your pick whip from 6, take it to 5. Let it go. Scale, click your scale, and back to 100%. Now we do the same with 4, minimize 5, select 4, turn on the eyeball, open the bracket, transform properties, and then we scale this one down to match the one behind it. You'll have to do a little bit of practicing when it comes to this, because it does take a lot of practice to get this right. You can skip lining up some things because you can mask them out, but you can never skip lining up your target. So always try and line up your target. You can see that's too small there. This tree here behind lines up perfectly, but this tree now isn't. So now we've got to scale this up. We only want to go up the slightest little bit. That part there we can mask out, so don't worry about that. Just get the side there lined up. Remember, if you want to zoom in a little bit, you can roll your mouse just to have a look at the edge to make sure it is lined up, and then return it back to its full screen after you've done that. All this can be masked here. None of that's an issue, and down here it can be masked as well. We could scale it up if you really wanted to and move this sideways. I do not recommend doing this. You can move it to there. A small adjustment won't matter, a large adjustment will. You'll end up running into problems if you do too large an adjustment sideways, because your center point's now moved. Okay, once you've got in the right position, same thing again, pick whip from 5 to 4, click your scale and set that back at 100%. Minimize the screen again, select layer free or photo free, turn on the eyeball, open the arrow key to reveal transform, and then open the transform properties. Same thing yet again, scale it down until you get it to match the tree behind it. You can see the tree quite clearly. Just look at the side now and try your best to match up one of the sides. This side here is pretty well matched up. Don't worry about this side, that can be fixed. Just get one side at least matched up. If you've got one side matched up, the center's matched up. So don't worry about this. That will be, we'll get rid of that later. Once you've done that, same thing again. Back to the pick whip the free, scale up to 100%. Minimize that layer and go to layer 2. Highlight 2, turn on the eyeball, open transform properties and go to scale, and now scale down. Now with this one, because we've got no sides to line up, look at the cracks in the tree. You've got a crack there which lines up with that crack there, but down here the cracks don't line up, so you this will probably be caused because we moved one box sideways. This is the downside of moving things sideways. So we'll leave it as close as we can to getting one of the cracks lined up. It will be masked at some point later on. That's pretty close. No one is ever going to notice that that crack isn't lined up with that crack, or that crack even belongs with that crack. And don't worry about this section here, because it's not lined up with that. That will be masked out. Once you have that in that right position, same thing again, pick whip from 3 to 2, return this to 100%, minimize this layer and select layer 1. Turn on the eyeball, open the bracket key to transform, open transform properties and scale. Zoom this out so we can see our target. Now this is that's lined up there, but if you can't see what you're doing, roll the mouse here, not on top of the boxes, anywhere here, and move in and have a look. You can adjust your opacity. You're never ever going to get that bug on top of that bug, or beetle on top of that beetle. All I want you to do is try and line up what you see here on the bark of the tree, because this photo covers the photo underneath, so you're never ever going to see that's out of alignment underneath. So just do your best to get it to a point where you think it looks like it's lined up. What I'm doing is I'm looking at this edge to that edge there. I'm not worried about the rest. Just remember to return your opacity back to 100% before you move on, because if you don't, you will not get your 100% zoom in later on. You won't see it, it will be just clear. Okay, once you've got that in there, just rotate your screen back out to that 100%. If you're not too sure, go out further and then rotate back in one click. And now you're back to where you should be. Now, this is a bit different here. We're not going to pick whip from there to there. We're going to go down to 8. If you've taken more than 8 pictures and you can't see them on the screen, you can put your mouse here and roll the mouse wheel, and that will roll down to the bottom one. So what you got to do is you select your bottom one. You're going to select the top one, but not the number 1 one. The top one of how many pictures you got there, and then you're going to pick whip, in this case from photo 2, when you got them all highlighted, to photo 1. The very last picture has got to be connected to all of them. So pick whip to there, and then return this to 100%. That's the only photo that you'll be doing that with, because the last photo, your macro picture, has got to control all the other pictures. Now that we've done that, we've got to set where our zoom's going to finish to 100%. So if we move out, grab the playhead, move out to wherever you think, I'll do 45 seconds. I'd go a fair way, because if you're going to be adding a speed ramp to probably your video at some point, when you put a speed ramp in, if you put it in at 10 seconds and then out at 40 seconds, when you speed that up to 1500%, that section of video there is going to become 5 seconds of video. So you're losing a lot of video there. So just remember to go out and leave yourself plenty of room. You can always change this later. You can crop the end of the video off if you don't need it all. Rightio, so now what we're going to do, we've got our scale back to 100%. You see your macro picture there. You're going to click your little circle here at the edge of scale. That's going to add a keyframe where this playhead is. So you click there, and now you've got a keyframe there. So when this playhead gets to there, it's going to be at 100% zoom into that macro picture. Now I want you to take it back down to, I'd give it 2 seconds so the viewer can see before the zoom takes off. The viewer can see the picture for at least 2 seconds. So anywhere there, I've got 2.22, but that's your timer there. So you're at, if you want to go down to 2 seconds, scroll it down to 2 seconds. That's 2 seconds. So now we're going to click the scale here, and we're going to zoom out. Now, this is a bit of a guessing game, this one. So I'm not too sure what the scale was on the last picture. So I'm just going to type in 0.01 and see what happens. We're nowhere near it. So at this point, do not move that playhead. Go and do it again until you get the last picture to fill the screen. So we'll type in 0.01. We'll add an extra 0. Now we've gone too far. You can see the black bars on the side. We don't want that. So we're going to have to zoom in a little bit to this edge here, and that edge there matches the edge of the screen here. So like I said, this is a bit of a hit and miss, this one. So you could try 0.012 and see if that works. And then push enter after you've typed it in. That's pretty close, not quite. I can still just see the black bars right on the edge there. You don't want to have black bars on your video, so we'll try 0.013. Rightio, that's about it there. So now what will happen if you were to scrub through this, so nothing happens to there, but when it gets to that point, this is where the zoom will start. Now my computer's very slow, so and when it gets to that point, it's at 100%. Don't worry about all the boxes you see on the screen. This is all going to be changed shortly. Now if you were to play this, I won't play it because, I'll try and play it and see if my computer will keep up with it. I'll hit the space bar, this plays. So now you see it zoomed in super fast, and now it's going to slow down for the next 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and it's doing nothing. So the last part of the zoom's too slow. We don't want that. So hit space bar again to stop that. What we're going to do, we're going to highlight both these keyframes. So click your mouse there, pull it down, create a box, and go along until you got both of them blue. Right click on the keyframe, keyframe assistant. I want you to go down to exponential scale. What this is going to do, it's going to place hundreds of keyframes in there to keep it at the same speed all the way through the video. So when it zooms in, it's going to be the same constant speed all the way through. It will not speed up or slow down. We'll do that in Premiere at a later point. So now when you scroll your playhead, if you were to push play now, it would just play at one constant speed. I'll attempt to do it. I don't know if the computer will handle it, but we'll see what happens. See, now it's more of a constant smooth zoom through. It's a constant speed all the way through. It won't speed up, it won't slow down. Rightio, push space bar again to stop it if you want to stop it, or you can let it play all the way through. It's up to you. So move your playhead back to the start. Now, we've got to make some colour adjustments here. This is, that's dark. This was early morning. I done this yesterday morning. We'll just minimise the photo 1 box just so we can see them all. Now what we're going to do, we're going to brighten this last image. This is this one. You can actually turn all these off if you want again. Go turn off 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 7. Turn them all off so you don't have those boxes interfering with you. So what we're going to do, we're going to type in here, we're going to add a curves colour adjustment to it. So just type in the word curves in the box up the top here in the right hand corner. If you don't see effects, go to here and make sure you click highlight effects and presets there. At the start of all this, workspaces, I'm hoping that Adobe would have opened on default for you so you could follow along, but if it didn't and you watch this video before you attempt this, just make sure it's on default, and what you see on my screen you will see on your screen. When all this rubbish stops popping up. So we'll type in the curves here. You don't have to type in the full word, you can see it's appeared there. Left click with the mouse on that and drag that down to layer 8. Now this is only adding this effect to that layer. When we adjust layer 7, we've got to do the same thing in every other layer in between. So we're only going to adjust the midtones here. So if you don't know how your curves work, your highlights are at the top, your darks are down the bottom, your midtones are in the middle. So we're just going to lift this a bit. You'll probably see my screen goes all blocky because my computer is very slow at this. We just want to brighten it a little bit because there's some images in there that are extremely bright, but I'm trying to avoid blowing out the sky as well. I don't want to blow out the sky. That's the reason why the images were so dark in the first place. So you can drag that up a bit. You don't have to do too much. We can pull the other images down. Now we can turn on layer 7. Now it's very hard to see layer 7, I know, because that's the edge of it there, but if you move over layer 7, you'll see or click on layer 7, you'll see the little tags on the side that shows it. There's not much colour difference there. It's pretty well much the same, but we'll put the curves onto layer 7 as well and drag that up just a little bit, just to match the other image. You're going to be hard pressed to see the difference in colours here. Now, what we're going to do, after we've added all these colour adjustments, we're going to mask. As you can see, there's shadows not lining up. This is a little bit too bright here. We're gonna mask a lot of this. So don't worry about it looking very uneven on your end at the moment. So now we'll turn on layer 6. Just click the layer so you can actually see the box around it. Now you can see how bright that is in comparison to everything else. Now this time, if you want to zoom into this, don't do your mouse roll. You can now pull your playhead towards the right, and that will bring up that image closer. So what we want to do, we want to try and match this image to what's behind it. So we'll drag the curves in again and drop them on layer 6, because that's the one we're working on. Same thing again, but instead of lifting them this time, you're pulling it down, and all you're trying to do is get a similar color. I would look at the road, don't worry about anything else, just look at the road. Because if you start looking at the trees, nothing's going to match. And when you do this fast in zoom effect later on, no one's going to see that slight bit of difference anyway. This section here will be all masked out. As you can see, this grass here has no stems on it, so that's all got to be masked out. So when you got that to the right point where you think it looks fine, we can move to the next layer. Turn on the next layer, click on the highlight the layer so you can see the mask, pull the playhead along, and we'll try and match that to this layer. Same thing again, drag your curves over. There are other color adjustments you can do. You can do luminetric color as well. You just have to type that in up here and that will come up. That's your normal color adjustment like you find in Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom and everything else. Now this one here will pull down as well. It may look like it's getting really dark. Don't panic too much about that. And don't panic about the road not lining up. So get that down to where you think it looks fine. You see this tree here should have been lined up with that tree there, but if you do that, then the trees here become too big, so you can't align everything with these photos. You're going to have to mask them. So now we'll move to photo 4, turn on the eyeball, pull the playhead along a bit so you get a better idea of what you're adjusting. Same thing again, curves to that layer. You're going to be doing this to every layer. Just get as close as you can. You're never ever going to get this spot on. Just do it as close as you can. I'd be more worried about your target tree than anything else around it. Just remember, if you pull your little slider down here, that's more towards the darks, that's more towards the lights up there. But the more you pull it down, the darker it gets. So just get it to where you think it looks half reasonable. Like I said, this zoom in effect's going to go in pretty quick until it gets down to the macro level. Then it will slow down and then we'll zoom in a little bit more after the macro level, and no one will ever see the slight bit of color variation. But if you have your white balance set wrong or different for each photo, they're definitely going to notice that. So you've got to keep that white balance in manual. Set a white balance, like I said, daytime 5100K, 5000K, whichever color you like best. Mine was set for 5100 on the day. So I'll leave that up to you what color balance you like, but yeah, around the 5000 for daytime shots. Now we'll do layer 3, we'll turn on the eyeball. Pull that playhead along again, just so you can see there's a big color variation here. Curves again onto layer 3. And now we'll pull them down until we get sort of a match. Don't worry about this section here, that's all going to be masked out. Just get it to pretty close, and that part there where you see the lump just hanging over the edge there, that will be masked out as well, same as down here. That will be all gone. Okay, when you think you got it pretty close, same thing again, move to layer 2, turn on the eyeball, pull the playhead across, and we'll do the same with this, curves again. You're probably going to have to run through this quite a few times to get the gist of what you're doing. Once you've got your lining up of your photos down pat, when you know what you can get away with and when you know what you can't get away with, you'll learn pretty quick, I can tell you, because I did. But it has taken me 8 months to figure out what I'm doing here, so it hasn't been a short, easy process, I must admit that. Rightio, so when that's pretty close, get it as close as you can to the same colour. We'll move on to the next layer. Layer 1, the last one. Click the eyeball, push the playhead right across to where our beetle was. Curves onto that one as well. Now you can see this looks very harsh here because in focus, out of focus. When this zoom in effect happens, no one's ever going to see this. If you make the perfect photo and that matches in with that, which is you can do, if you take this macro picture and you move your camera back 3 or 4 inches and then take another shot, this will be in focus. And then if you do a lot of close-up shots going backwards in small steps, you will have it all in focus. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm trying not to use 20 or 30 photos because we'll be doing this for the next 4 hours. I've only done the 8 shots. Most of my shots are only 8 shots for 100 meter plus zoom in effect. Your macro shot, this macro shot was a 200 shot stack. So this last image is 200 shots. You can look up focus stacking if you like on the internet. There's plenty of tutorials there. I don't think I need to do one for that. But there's plenty of focus stacking tutorials out there on how to do them. But if you can get a clean macro shot with that, with doing one photo, do one photo. You don't need to have a stacked image. I only do the stacked image to get every little hairy detail of the creature. So, because when you're up this close, your focal distance is very short. So I could focus on the eye and get the eye perfect, but the rest of the beetle would have been out of focus. So that's the idea of the focus stack. So it does it in steps all the way through from front to back, and every part of that beetle will be in focus. But the drawback of that is all this here is in really clear focus, but this isn't. And that's what I say, if you want to do 30 or 40 shots in this little section here, stepping backwards an inch or 2 at a time, yeah, you can do that, but you're going to be processing this image or your image or your video for a long time. So once you got that one down to where you think it looks good, we can zip the playhead back to the start. We're going to turn off all the layers again except for the last 2. Now, as you can see a harsh line here. You can see a harsh line there. So what we're going to do now, we're going to start masking all the photos so they sort of blend in a little bit better. So we're going to grab the pen tool here at the top. Not you, you're on the pointer tool at the moment. We grab the pen tool. And what we're going to do, we're going to go down to the bottom here, anywhere down here. The edge of this mask, this edge of this layer, sorry, is off the bottom of the screen. So just start anywhere down the bottom. Make sure you got your layer 7 selected. I didn't have. So now we go around the, we're going to create this mask all the way around. Just try and imagine where the edge of the image is. You can see it here on this one. It's not, some of the others you can see it really easy. This one you can't see it because the colours are pretty goddamn close on this one. When I do this last click, you're going to notice this corner disappears and every other corner. Okay, now if we click out of that image, that's the mask. The other image is there, but now it's a round image. It's not that square, harsh edge anymore. So what we can do now, we can move into the next one. We turn the next one on, which is this one. We can move the playhead along. Okay, now that that one's masked, you will see the edge of the mask. You see out of focus, in focus, but we'll sort that out as well as we go along. So now we'll go to layer 6 or photo 6 or 5, whatever you'd like to call it. Why did we get a shape layer here? I've got no idea. We'll just delete that. You can pull that playhead along again. You can see the big difference here. That we will fix that up. Now this one here, you can definitely see the road does not match up with the road, so we've got to mask out the road on this one. So make sure you've got that number 5 selected and the eyeball turned on. Just make sure you're on the right layer. Don't click on the top layer because you'll end up creating a mask elsewhere. So on this one, we're going to mask up the edge of this road here and get rid of all this. What you do not want to mask is your target. Never mask your target. I'll just show you, I'll mask an area I don't want. Now, when you've created this mask, see our road looks good now. If you've made the mask too big, you've made a mistake here. You didn't want this part of that tree in there. While you've still got your mask, your pen tool selected, just move your pen over that, and when it turns to a black arrow, one of these squares, click the square and drag it across. The same with up here. This mask can be adjusted 100 times. It doesn't make no difference. We could mask out this whole section here if you really wanted to. I don't know if it's really worth masking that out. I think we'll leave it. No one's going to see it. But yeah, you can adjust this mask even after we've completed our whole process. If you find a mistake, you can go back and adjust the mask. You can adjust anything, as long as you save the project, that is. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Might just pull this in a bit here. It doesn't look quite right there. Okay, we'll move to photo 4. Turn on the eyeball. Pull the plate along so we can see what we're doing. On this one, we are going to take out this whole section up here, all the way down there. We want all that gone. And we want this tree here. There's no tree behind it, so we've got to do something about that. And that layer is also covering this tree. So we'll create a mask down here. I probably wouldn't mask up to the edge of the tree here because this will blend in quite well down here. So we'll start down here. We'll move up. Here, the top of the tree's fine. This section here, we might just click down in there. But here something's not right. Like I say, when you create the mask, it doesn't matter. You can adjust the mask later if you see something that doesn't match up. Adjust it later. Don't panic too much about these masks. Just don't take the mask right to the edge of the tree. This one. Don't worry about this one. Just don't do it on this one because we're going to add in a blur along the edge of the mask so it blends in. We don't want the tree blurring. So now we'll go to the next layer. Same thing. Turn on that. Make sure the layer is selected. We'll push the playhead along so we can see our target. This is the one where I want you to run closer up to the edge of the tree. We'll put a small blur on this one. So what we'll do here, we'll start our mask off at the bottom here. We'll move along. This here just doesn't match up with nothing. We've got to do something about that. We'll come across to there because we've got overlapping tree here. We'll move down here. Yeah, just if you can't see under the mask, just remember you're on layer 3. Click down here, the mask will disappear. And just have a look. If it looks good, it is good. If it doesn't look good, adjust your mask. Go back and click level 3. Oh, sorry, photo 3. and pull your mask in. If something just doesn't look good, just make an adjustment again. As I said, no one is going to see this when we zoom in. These minor adjustments, as long as it looks good from the distance, that's all that really matters. You could probably pull this top one in a bit to make it look more natural of a lump on the tree there. If we start pulling it in more and more, we'll expose the tree underneath, but when we add the blur to the mask, we're going to start blurring the tree, so we won't do any more on that one. We'll pick layer 2 or photo 2, turn on the eyeball, move this playhead across so we can see what we're doing again. We've got to mask that out because that belongs over there. And we need to mask this corner out, it's out of focus. So we'll start about there. You've got to try and imagine where your photo is, so take a look at it before you start. So if you click underneath now, you probably could never tell there's a photo on top of a photo there, unless you've got a big colour variation. There's a little bit of colour variation there, but not much to worry about. So now we'll do the next layer. Turn on the eyeball, move your playhead across. Now this is the one you really don't want to mask too much, and there's a good reason for it, because when we zoom in, we want this to zoom to 100%. If you mask out most of this, you're not going to be able to zoom into 100% without seeing the blurriness behind it. So our mask is going to be very small on this. We'll stick close to the edges all the way. There's a little bit of shitty stuff here I just don't like. But up here you can stick to the edge of the photo, if you can see the edge of the photo. Rightio. So we want that to be nearly at its full size. So when the zoom comes in, when our zoom finishes, so we set it at 45, we'll go probably just a smidgen further than that. No one's going to see this. Like, I'm going to blur the edges now. We're going to go along and blur all the edges, so no one's going to see it. So now we zoom all the way back out again, and looking at this from a distance, you really can't see no colour differences. So our playhead's going to go along to a point like this. You can see these, but we're going to blur these in a sec. Your playhead's going to go to, say, I don't know, 10 seconds or something, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then we're going to do what I would call a zoom in right to 45 seconds. So this whole section is going to shrink down to probably 2 seconds instead of there being the whatever we've got there, 35 seconds. A video in between, that's not going to exist anymore. So we'll go back, we're going to pick layer 7, we're going to open it up, just make sure you highlight it, there's your mask. Now what we're going to do, you can close this transform tool. If all these numbers and whatever's bothering you, you can close this up because you won't be using that again. As you can see, transforms for transforming your photo, your scaling and everything else. Your effects are any effects you've applied, like we've applied the curves effect. So if this box disappears and you need to adjust the color of this one again, you go down to curves. Once you select curves, this box will reappear. If you've applied other color changes to it, there'll be more things under the effects, like luminar color and everything else. So that's the way you find everything under each photo. So in our case now we're going to mask because we want to blur the mask. So click on the mask, down arrow, and we want to do a mask feather. So we're going to come across here and we're going to type in 100. That's 100 pixels. We push enter, and then mask expansion, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to do minus 100. Now what that's done is added a blur into that. So you can close that one up now. If I click off the screen, you still can't see where the photo in the middle meets the photo on the edge. That's the idea of the blur. So now we'll go to photo 6. We're going to do this with every photo. So like I said, close the transform if it's bothering you, but yeah, it's up to you here what you do. So open the mask, same thing. Just remember we're doing mask feather and mask expansion. So the top one's going to be a positive number, the bottom one's going to be a negative number. If you want to move up closer to see what's going to happen, this one here, it wasn't too bad. We'll try 100. If you can really see it, you can still see a harsh change. What I recommend you do is type in 200. On some of my photos I've gone as far as 800 for mask expansion and mask feather. So type in what looks good to you. So we'll do 100. I'll do 100 on this one again. So the mask feather is going to be 100. Sometimes you've got to use a bigger number, and then just remember the second one's always a minus. You can see when you hit that enter key on the last one, the actual blur appear. Now you can minimize that one. Click off the screen, have a look. Can't really see it. So now we'll go to 5. We'll do this. We're just going to go through the whole lot and do the same thing. Zoom in a bit if you need to. You can see sort of see the difference there. But it's not too bad because this is right out of focus, but all this down here is in focus. Now we'll do the same thing on each and every one of them. So when you get to the last one, you've completed that task. Same with this one. I'm going to do a 100 again. I'm just going to zip through all these, otherwise this video is going to go for hours. So we're just doing the same thing over and over again for each mask. If I change the number, I'll definitely let you know, but at the moment it's going to be 100, 100. So so 100 again on this one. And minus 100. Now when we get up closer to the edge of the tree, it might be worth dropping down to a 50 so we don't get a big blur on that tree. So this one I'll go 50 pixels instead of the 100. And then minus 50 at the bottom. There's no set rule that says you've got to do plus 50 and minus 50. It's you can do 100 and then minus 50 if that's what you want to do. But keep them the same and it'll probably just make it a little bit easier for you. I just move in the playhead along so I can actually see the mask I'm working on closer up. This one here will be a 50 as well because it all blends in fairly well, so there's no need for these massive blurs. Just remember that every time you do this to make sure you clicked on the layer that you're working on, because if you clicked on something else you're going to run into problems. This one's going to be the same as well. When my computer wakes up we're going to do we'll try a 50 on this one. I don't know, this is the hardest one of the lot. But like I said, we're going to come in pretty quick on this one, as you probably saw in the video before. See, that's added bugger all blur. We might actually do that 100. We might change that to 100. Minus 100 down the bottom. Just to give it that little bit more. So we'll click out of that. So what's going to happen, we're going to get to this point. We want to get to there, but we want to keep that little bit of a blur there, so it sort of blends in as it goes to the background. So that's going to be our zoom in point. To look at that, we open up layer 1 and we're at the end of our zoom, because that's your zoom from start to finish. Now what we can do, because that's a dark image, we can, as it's zooming in, we can brighten it up. So we'll take it back to about there, and what we're going to type in up here, instead of the curves, we'll just type in colour. Oops, maybe I should delete all that first. And scroll down to luminetric colour, and what I want you to drag that onto layer 1. So this will add another effect to your layer 1. As you can see, it's put an effect here now. So not only have you got your curves effect, your effects will all show up under here. If you don't see effects, there's normally a little box up here you can click, and it will show, say, effects, presets, blah 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 blah. It will say all these. Just click effects and it will show you what's in your effects. And if you don't see it, make sure you open up your layer and click your mask or your effect that you're working on. So if I was down here under effects, I'd click luminar color, which I'm on at the moment. I'll click that and that should appear here. So now we're going to go into basic correction on this one, and what we're going to do an exposure adjustment. So our playhead's there just before we get into the 100%. We don't want it at 100%, we want it just before we get there. So as we're zooming in super fast, this is going to lighten up. So we're going to click that little circle there again, that adds a keyframe. And then we're going to move across to 100% to there. And we're going to adjust our exposure. We just want to bring this up because as we zoom in further and further, we don't want it black underneath. These were dark pictures, they were done early morning, so I had to zoom and get out there quick in the morning just to get this done. So I've lifted up the exposure 2.3 stops there, so that will be close enough. Now when we get to this point, so you can see your two keyframes there now, so your exposure will be nothing before it, but as that playhead flies into there, that's the point when it's going to start brightening up. No one's going to see this happening, it's just going to come up really quick, and at that point there it will be at its full exposure. So your edge of your picture on this one is there. This is what I say about not masking the last one too much. Try and mask the minimum on that one. If you don't put a mask on, you can't put a feather on. So if you don't want to mask the photo, just put a mask around the edge of the photo and then you can still feather it. Now the other thing we're going to do here, this camera I'm using at the moment is a high megapixel camera. It's 45 megapixels, so we can afford to zoom in a lot more than what we have at 100%. So what we're going to do, we're going to increase our zoom. So let's go out to 55 seconds now. So for another 10 seconds, we're going to keep zooming in. So what I'll do is we'll go down the scale. We're still on number 1 image. We're going to go down the scale and we're at 100%. I want you to scale this up to, let's have a look. We'll go to 310%. So that's going to be 310% at that keyframe. Now the other thing we can do, we can drag this playhead back to here, and we'll put a keyframe in for position. So at that point where it is now, it's going to be in that position. But if we move back to our full-on zoom, by the time it gets to this full-on zoom, we're going to go to the eye. So your position properties are down here. This one's up and down. So if you scroll left and right, will be up and down for the move the image up and down. And that one's left and right. So if you click on this number here and you pull it to the right, no, that did not work. For what reason, I don't know. We've got our position in there. Yeah, we'll just do control. If you do a mistake, push Control Z to undo it. Because we've still got that keyframe highlighted. Unhighlight that keyframe. Put it back to this point here. You further zoom in. So, like I said, back here was our center position. And when we get to here, we want the eyeball to be in the center position. So we go back to our position property and we're going to pull this to the right. Left. So drag your mouse to the left. You'll see a line appearing on the screen. Just keep dragging it across till you think your eyeball's in the center. You could cheat here and just look at my number and go, right, he's on number 577. You can just type in 577.0 and you'll be in the right position. So now we've got those two keyframes. If you go, make sure you're on your position line. Definitely not your bottom line here. I want you to highlight these two keyframes. Right click on one of them. Make sure they're both blue. Keyframe assistant and go easy ease. That means, all that means is when it starts to move the photo, instead of being a quick jerk and moving across, it's going to do it very gently as it goes. And also this bottom keyframe where we zoomed in further, you can click on that one, right click, and do exactly the same thing, easy ease, on that one. So right, at this point now, we're ready to export this because I can't do a speed ramp in After Effects. I have no idea. I just can't quite get the gist of the speed ramping in After Effects just yet. I do it in Premiere. So I'll show you how to export this video now and then later today I will upload the second one, which will only go for 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, and we'll do a speed ramp into this bug, because at the moment it plays at normal speed and it's just going in very slowly. I mean, if you've got every photo perfect, you can just use it like this, but you make sure you got all your colors perfect if you're going to do it this way, and your focus. You'll see the bug lighten up now as it comes in. That's our color change there. Now you're probably noticing on mine that this is a bit blurry. If I push the space bar, that's because I'm on a quarter. If I go to full, it's going to be at full quality. It will take a second because my computer is so slow. Maybe it might be a good idea if you're doing this on your own photos. I don't know what megapixel your camera is, but if you're zooming in that extra, click it over to full quality when you do that zoom in effect, and just make sure it's not blocky. This is nowhere near blocky. I could probably zoom in a whole lot further yet, but that's enough. I don't like overdoing things, so that will be it. So you can change it back to quarter if you want now. Just makes After Effects work faster. But so now we're going to export. You can minimize that if you like. So you've got all your layers right. If you don't think you have, you can go back in and make adjustments. Just remember, as you move over the layer, a box will appear. So this layer 6 is was the box in the middle of the screen. You'll notice every box as it moves in and out. If you click the layer, it will highlight the mask that you got there, so you can work on that one. So now we'll go up to File, we'll go Export. And I'm using Adobe Media Encoder. I'm hoping you have it. If you haven't, you can just export it in general. After Effects will allow you to export it, but I use this. It's much better. As I said, Adobe After Effects has got a whole lot of plugins. You can see just in the color on the right hand side here, there's so many different things in there. Look, you can go and play it. You can do color balance. You can do change color. You can do anything in that. But that's another story for another day. So this is your file here. So I'm using a PC. I'm going to export in H.264. So we want to click this box, Match Media Source. The reason why I'm clicking this, I do not want a 12K video going out because that's the quality of my photos. I want a 4K. If you've got a 25 megapixel camera or B whatever, you can export in 4K. That will be 4K quality. There's no need to go any lower, not unless you want to do it at 1080p. I'll just pull this box up so you've got a better look at what I'm doing here. So H.264, the next box, I'm going to go down and select high quality 4K. Select that, and then this one here, scale to fit up the top here. See, we've got black bars on the side. We don't want those black bars. If you bugger this up, you can fix this up in Premiere, but we want scale to fill. So now it fills the screen. We don't want black bars. I don't want black bars. So we're going to render at maximum quality. The only other thing you really need to do up there is your output name. You call it whatever you wish to call it. And when you click output name, this is also where your video is going to end up. So for me, I will put it in my normal drive in finished videos. I will call it Beetle Zoom. I've probably done this 3 or 4 times now, so I better give it a number. We'll go 3 so I know what I'm up to. We'll go save. All this in here, audio and all that, you've got no audio on it, so you don't have to worry about all this. Do not click match source, because not on my photos anyway, because it's going to be a massive file if you do that. Everything else is pretty well standard. Leave it as is. So the file size will end up being 602 meg. Once you've done that, you can close that screen off, or you can just lift it up a bit higher if you can and go OK. It will retain all your settings if you close it off. So now you can see it's we've got a H.264, we've got a custom setting. That's going to be your 4K, that your custom setting you put in. It's going to V drive for me, finished videos, and it's going to be called Beetle. So now all we do is push the play, and that will render that out. It will tell you when it's finished. This is probably going to take 20 minutes or more, so I'm not going to keep recording and wasting your time. And then after this is done, I'll upload this video first for you, and you can try and do this. And later this afternoon, when I get some time, I'll upload how to do the speed ramp. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it helps. If it doesn't, you can send me a message or something, and I'll try and make it a bit clearer for you. Rightio, signing out.